It's noon here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and this is CarEdge Live for Monday, April 21st, with your host, me, wearing a collared shirt because we have a very special guest today, and Zach, who, well, just couldn't afford that collar today. How are you today, Hanson?
I'm doing fantastic, Pops. Today's show is brought to you by CarEdge.com. If we can help you out with anything, including the fact that we have a 25% off promotion going for at least the remainder of this month because of the 25% import tariffs. If we can help you out with anything, CarEdge.com. And Dad, you said it just a second ago. We have a special guest today, very Laura Wehunt, the Vice President of Data and Analytics from our friends over at BlackBook, is joining us here today. Laura, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me with you guys. Always wonderful to join the show, and definitely interesting times we're in right now. So excited to talk about it.
So here's the title I went with, folks. Panic buying and used car prices start surging. I want to pull up a chart, Laura, that you sent to us. It's going to be in tomorrow's BlackBook report. Let's pull it up on the screen right here. Pops, what did you notice when I pulled this up for you right before the show? You let out a holy blank.
Yes, it is one of those. It's like Cialis for charts. It's just way up and to the right.
Laura, what's going on in the used car market?
Oh, the market has exploded right now. It is crazy. So it is not abnormal for us to increase this time of year. So as you can see, if you can kind of see that very faint gray line on this graphic, that is what our typical week over week price change would be for this time of year. So very normal for us to be in positive territory, but not normal to be at this level of increases. So at this point, we are now like flashbacks. Maybe we're all having PTSD from 2021 when we had no new cars. We had that shortage. Everybody was rushing to the used market. We are seeing that type of buying behavior again. Really what we're hearing from the dealer standpoint is, hey, if we don't have new cars, people are going to be going for used. So let's buy now. Let's prepare. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it in the conversion rates in the auctions. Those buyers, the dealers are very, very active. And then we're seeing it in the price that they are willing to pay.
So I was just going to posit that one thought, which is we're seeing panic buying seemingly, Laura, on both the consumer side and the dealer side. It sounds like it's not just, consumers are rushing to buy used cars before the prices go up even more. It sounds like dealers are rushing to buy used cars before the prices go up even more.
To me, it sounds like dealers have decided they have to get back into the used car business, that they're thinking the future for their new car sales is weak at best, that there could be lower production levels from their factory partners, and that the vehicles that are being produced will be at higher prices. So that's going to force consumers that are already stretched to try and get a new car into a used car. And these dealers are saying, well, we need to be your big time used car dealer so that we can help you. And they are what I would call overpaying for their inventory at the moment, and probably what will look like this coming week like they underpaid.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So not only that inventory piece, but also you touched on it there, that the new cars are going to get more expensive. So even if you have a vehicle that is produced domestically, you still end up with other vehicles within a manufacturer's lineup that are produced other places. So Honda is a great example. The Civic is not produced domestically, but the Accord is. And so, or no, I got it reversed. Oh, crud. Now I got it. You know what? All of these just swim in my head. But we were talking about it in-house. So basically, even if you have one produced domestically and one is imported, you can't have Civic and Honda. You can't all of a sudden have Civic, cost more than an Accord. So therefore, we're going to see everything rise.
So what have we seen at the auctions, Laura? You mentioned a moment ago, like conversion rates, for example. Let's help our audience understand this because we're reporting on like the nitty gritty of the auto industry and obviously our community. These are people thinking about buying a used car, maybe selling a used car they have. Help us understand some of these lower level dynamics and how they then manifest themselves in these prices. So you used the word conversion rate earlier. Help us understand what is that and why do you look at it? What does it matter?
All right, so the conversion rate is the total number of vehicles sold at the auction for that day when you're looking at the total population that was offered for sale. So let's say there's 5,000 units offered for sale at that single auction on that single day, and they sold 4,000. So that difference there, that is our conversion rate. So that's just our, internal lingo. But we monitor that because it tells us about the health of the industry. But we also take it with some other factors. So right now, we have actually started to see that conversion rate in the past couple of weeks start to decline a little bit. But that's where we look at, are your buyers bidding? Are they wanting that? Are they wanting that vehicle? Think about this as a little like eBay, and you're bidding on something. It's the same way. If there's lots and lots of bids, there's a strong demand there. But it still has to get to the point where that seller is willing to let it go at that price. And so the bids may not get all the way up to the point where it hits that, that threshold where it can be sold. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the bids, but that number we've got to get to for the seller to say, okay, I'll sell it. We're still seeing a little bit of a difference there. And so that's why it can also be, it's a wonderful metric of the health of the wholesale market, but it also doesn't tell us everything. And that's where BlackBook is very closely watching both sides of it. So also looking at that bidding activity.
So if I hear you correctly, many sellers are more fond of their inventory than the buyers are at the moment. And because of that fondness, they're thinking, well, your bid's a nice bid, but it's just not nice enough. Let's see how we do next week. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
That is exactly what you're hearing. So they are going to hold it. They're going to wait, and they're going to run that vehicle again the next week. They're going to offer it up for sale again the next week at the auction to see if they can get a little more money. Because just as, Zach just showed, if we continue on this path that we've been going on of seeing these rising prices, there's a good chance they can get more money next week. But it's also a bit of a game. The dealers have to be careful because we also make crest, and, there is a lot of concern from consumers with affordability. We've still got this whole affordability crisis going on, and it's just going to get worse.
The scary thing to me is that I know that Zach and we've been talking about the affordability crisis for both new and pre-owned cars for the American public for the last 4 years. And sales haven't declined to any great degree because of that affordability crisis. It's just they're selling basically the same number of cars to just a smaller subset of the American public that can buy those cars. At what point does that smaller subset no longer be able to afford to buy these cars? And as they said in the movie Airplane, and the poop hits the fan. I mean, because you got to think it's got to happen at some point.
You think it has to happen, but I also know I've been on this show with you guys how many times now, and I feel like we have this conversation every single time I'm here. So when is it going to happen? And we're just in this new cycle, or it just seems like it's one shock to the system after the other. We keep thinking that values are going to decline, but they don't. Even last year, we only had 12.5% depreciation over the whole year. So when you look at, from January to December 31st, values only declined 12.5%. That is a little more on the normal side, but that's still nowhere near when we had 28.7% appreciation. Values went up nearly 30%. So we have to put it in perspective. We are still at this new elevated level. And unfortunately, what's going on right now is not going to help us. 3 years ago, we didn't have the high level of new car sales. So therefore now we're paying for it. We don't have a nice supply in the used market of those wonderful low mileage off lease vehicles coming back to the market. Also helping to prop up those used values right now. But if this, all the stuff with tariffs going on, if we really do start to see a lot of constriction in our new vehicle inventory, we're going to have the same issue 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always felt that the used car situation, the conundrum, is that it's not really going to change before the end of the decade at the earliest. And especially if we have another situation like we had 3 years ago, where there's fewer new cars being sold, so that there'll be fewer used cars coming back 2-3 years from now. And that just is going to continue to exacerbate the low mileage, high quality used car situation for the foreseeable future, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No real good end in sight to this right now.
We were looking at the latest new car inventory data. Last month, new car inventory fell 10% in just 1 month, from 2.9 million vehicles in inventory to 2.69. So we are already seeing a beginning of a shortage on the new car side. Remember, pre-pandemic, the auto industry had 3 to 4 million new cars in inventory, and it had gotten as low as 750, 800,000 new cars in inventory. So it is like a movie we've seen before. And Laura, I want to pull up another chart that you shared with us, which again will be out in the BlackBook report tomorrow. So for those of you that are interested in this data, you can go to blackbook.com. They put out weekly reports, which are fantastic. And you can see the most recent data. This is what we were showing on the other chart, just in a table form now. We had the market increase. So used car prices at the dealer auctions increased in value 0.63%. This week, in 2017 to 2019 average terms, we saw an appreciation of 0.08%. So we are up, what is that? Almost 10x, 8x. We're up 8 times the normal level of appreciation at the dealer auctions right now. And obviously we have the breakdown here, Laura, of cars versus trucks and SUVs. Do you have any texture you can share about, again, what we're seeing broadly, but then specific segments of vehicle, whether that be, make and model or price point or drivetrain, things like that? Like, what are you seeing getting a little more granular?
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly enough, last week was the first week since November of 2021 that all 22 of BlackBook's reporting segments reported an increase. So literally every segment that we track, everything from, a compact car to a full-size pickup truck to a full-size cargo van, everything went up across the board. Now, the rate of increases varies wildly. Seeing some pretty heavy increases out of a lot of your mainstream segments. So this all goes back to that affordability. So we're seeing big increases in your subcompact segments, your subcompact car, subcompact crossover. Those are your little guys. There's not many that even play in that subcompact car space anymore. Same with compact cars and compact crossovers. This is your affordability. This is your, Kia Rio in the compact or the subcompact, up into your, Nissan Sentra to your compact car. And then you start getting into those crossovers where you've got a Chevrolet Trax or a Hyundai Tucson or something like that. These very affordable segments. This is where we're seeing incredible strength there. Also seeing strength out of the small pickup, more strength out of the small pickup segment than we are out of the full size. Not that full size isn't doing well, but that's going to be that Ford Ranger, Nissan Frontier, Chevrolet Colorado, that smaller pickup. Again, I think it's all to that affordability piece. Your vans not doing as much there. They're increasing, but not the same amount of strength. That's a minivan. The minivan is very niche, segment anyway. Not seeing some of as big of increases week over week as we've seen in some of the other segments. starting to pick up a little bit. But then you've got your work vans, your compacts, and your full size vans. That's a whole different, ball game. We report on them, but very different trends there.
Sure.
And then the luxury stuff is different. However, did see those go up last week, and that was a change. And I do think some of that's driven by some of the news that we've seen based on the tariffs that you're now seeing. Audi and Porsche and BMW, changing some of what they're importing or holding things back. Or Mercedes, they came out and announced, hey, we're not going to pass on any price increases for the 2025 model year. So just a lot of interesting dynamics going on there.
Have we seen any upward movement in values for EVs like we have for all the other segments?
No, I mean, the whole market right now is moving up, but those EVs are definitely not moving up at the same pace by any means. I mean, our fuel prices are level right now. I mean, that's nothing, no shocks there, uncertainty as to what that means for even some of the tax incentives and things. So, and there was a bit of a rush on the market early in the year. People wanted to go ahead and get in there and get them. But I think now the price point on those is still just so high. And we've definitely seen it does seem like a lot of those that wanted an EV have bought an EV, and those that don't want the EV, there's nothing out there to draw them into making that conversion from your traditional gas-powered vehicle to an EV.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we continue to see EV sales kind of stagnating, and then obviously those prices are still through the roof. We were looking at the data that Manheim puts out from Cox Automotive, Laura, and it was sharing a very similar story to what you were talking about with subcompact crossovers and subcompact cars. I think the days supply for under $15,000 used cars was something like 28 days or something like that, 11 days below the industry normal. And then obviously the day supply is that leading indicator for how much available inventory there is and how much demand there is for it. So I think there's a story here, maybe a positive story for consumers. If you do own one of these vehicles, like the trade-in value is going up, right? Like that is the other end of this. Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned it earlier, the kind of like lack of quality at the auctions right now. So if consumers own a relatively low mileage, relatively new subcompact Chevy Trax, something like that, they have leverage, or I guess I'm assuming they have leverage. Maybe you can provide some context.
Absolutely. They absolutely have leverage right now. Because especially if it's a sedan,
okay,
especially if it's a sedan, you're really going to have some leverage, because think about a few years ago, we had all of our domestic manufacturers, they pulled out of sedan production. I mean, you have some sports cars left. There's not much left in that space. You've got Hyundai, Kia, Nissan that are still producing in that affordable space, but you just don't have many used options there. And so therefore, yes, you're absolutely in a space to go visit your local dealer. Even if you're not wanting to purchase something, maybe you had an extra car that you used to use to commute, and now you work from home and it's been sitting in your garage. Like, great time. Go buy your local dealer. They probably want to buy it from you, and they'll give you a nice price for it, because we don't have the inventory in that affordable range. And unfortunately, affordable now is under 20,000, not the under 10,000 that we used to talk about.
And it sounds like, I mean, one of the nuggets I'm taking away from our conversation today, Laura, is the conversion rates are actually softening a bit because the price floors on the cars going at the auction block are too high. So yeah, I mean, if I'm a dealer and I'm looking at one side, which is my manufacturer rep telling me, don't expect to get as much inventory. And then on the other side, I'm looking at, well, I need cars to sell because I got overhead expenses I need to pay for. And I am a car dealer, for goodness sake. Either I'm going to go to the auction and I'm going to have to bid up to get to these new price floors, which the sellers, to be very clear, it's a seller's market, even at the auction, is what I'm taking away from this. Or I can try and get creative and buy more cars from folks walking in off the street. Okay, I'll pay up for the folks walking in off the street. You've always said to me, Dad, buying a car from the auction, it's not like it's cheap. There's fees involved in that. There's transportation.
Oh, fees are incredibly high. Yeah. So if you're going into that local dealer, remind them, Hey, it's here. It's in front of you. No fees, no transportation. That's the other part. You buy one at the auction. You've got to get it transported from the auction to your dealership.
That is a situation literally where the sales manager, especially the new car sales manager, needs to remind the used car manager that it is cheaper for him to step up for this car here than it is for you to go to the auction and buy a car there. And my suggestion to you is, if you don't believe that from me, go ask the owner. He'll probably confirm what I'm suggesting to you. Step up on a trade here. It's much cheaper, and there's much less that can go wrong. I mean, I've seen vehicles get damaged when they're in transport. It happens. So you know what you're buying when the customer brings it into the dealership. It's much cheaper to buy it at the dealership. There are no fees involved other than, well, your service department's going to take advantage of you. But any used car manager that is trying to steal his trade-ins in this market is not much of a used car manager today, in my opinion. I have to throw it in my opinion so I don't get sued.
Laura, I know we've only got you for a couple more minutes. I want to ask you one more question, and we really appreciate, again, Laura Wehunt from BlackBook. She's joined us many times over the years. This market update is critically important because of what's going on today. But Laura, I've got a question for you. My final one, maybe Pops has one more after this. Some of the clients that you work with at BlackBook, I mean, these are big financial institutions, these are rental car companies, these are all sorts of organizations that need to keep track of and have a projection into the future of what's going to happen with used car values. What are you hearing from them? What are their concerns? What are their questions? What are they looking to BlackBook for to help get answers on? Like, how are they? I'm a big financial institution. How am I trying to use this data to make a smart decision?
So they're using us in many different ways. So when it's like a rental or fleet company, they are looking at what is the potential impact of their portfolio going to be worth, in more short term. In a lot of cases, they're looking at, if they're having to remarket their off rental units in the next 30, 60, 90 days, even out to 6 months from now, they're looking at us for that. They're looking at us for, well, what is this going to mean for our purchasing of the next model year? What are we hearing and seeing there? When it comes to your big financial institutions, they're looking at us for what is the value of their portfolio? How is it changing from literally day to day right now? Looking at what should they be paying for vehicles right now? What of their vehicles in their portfolio, they're ones that are at risk of default. What is the position on that vehicle? Is that vehicle in a position of equity? Can they potentially try to move the consumer out of that vehicle without having to actually, default on it? Just the list goes on. I feel like I could we could totally derail this whole thing if I really.
No, it's just
so many different uses for this data right now, and when it is changing so rapidly from day to day, we're moving back into one of those times where us updating our values daily is almost not good enough anymore. I need Jared to allow me for us to publish like hourly updates at this point.
Wow.
Is it the uncertainty of what the future looks like that is concerning to a lot of these organizations?
It is. And that's where we've also got, not only do we do what we have for current valuations, but we also have forecasted valuations. So what is that car going to be worth in 3 years? And that is where right now we have actually updated, effective May 1st, we will have an updated forecast that reflects the implementation of the tariffs. And so obviously varying impacts to different segments, different, price points, all those kind of things. But overall, we are forecasting strengthening of the market moving forward because, if all of this stays in place as it seems to be, we will have lower new supply. We will have increasing MSRPs of these new vehicles. All these things strengthen the used market.
Wow. All right. Well, Laura, we really appreciate your time. We love and appreciate what the team over at BlackBook produces. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to enlighten and inform us here at CarEdge. And as always, you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. It was so wonderful to see you both.
Thanks, Laura.
Good seeing you, Laura.
See ya.
Yeah. Bye-bye now. That was great.
Yeah, it's always good. Always
Yes.
good. Always good. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the BlackBook team. Dad, we've had some really thoughtful contributions come in, so let's address those. Earlier in the show, Mark. It's always good to see Mark here. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Great to see CarEdge reporting on the used car market. Yeah, we think it's great too, because you know what? It is a turbulent time. We haven't seen a chart go up and to the right that fast and with that much velocity in a long time. So really important that we're keeping tabs here of what's going on in the used car market. And then we also had from Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. This is incredibly generous as well. Any predictions on which make and model will do good or bad? Just thinking, since Ford and Stellantis have been leading in recalls, people might not want one of those used versus a Toyota or a Lexus, for example, because they're usually good new cars, which are good for used. I think that's kind of baked into the market for those vehicles, right?
I think based on what Laura was saying, when it comes to affordability, the Toyotas and the Lexuses aren't going to be nearly as affordable as perhaps the Ford.
They might hold their value even better.
Yeah, and the Stellantis products. So even though the Ford and Stellantis products might not be as good a vehicle as the Toyota or Lexus, it'll be easier for people to afford those. And that I think is going to be the biggest issue moving forward, is affordability.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. Speaking of affordability, caredge.com/survey. Folks, we need your help. We are doing a survey of our community here to try and get a sense for the affordability crisis in the United States right now. Again, it's caredge.com/survey. It's 100% anonymous. You just submit your information about these vehicles and these price points that you would potentially purchase a vehicle. We're doing this research. We really, really, really would appreciate if everyone who's on the show right now, everyone who watches this, go to caredge.com/survey, scroll down and answer these 3 short anonymous questions. Take 30 seconds. Please, please, please. Dad, do you want to do our favorite segment of the show, or do you want to save that for when you're back in your condo?
Well, you think I can't do it here?
I think you could do it here.
Well, really? You've got to be kidding me.
All right, folks, it is getting scary out there what you can get approved for financing. Buying a car in 2025, 12.74% interest rate for 84 months on $102,000 financed, leaving you with a total interest expense of $53,800. Dad, this is nuts.
Well, it's only nuts if you can't afford it.
Yeah. This
Okay.
Is true.
If an $1,863 a month payment for the next 7 years is eminently affordable, then it's not nuts, but it's suspect at best.
Yeah.
It's staggering to me that people can rationalize committing themselves to paying back $156,492.84 over the next 7 years for a vehicle that they just purchased. The selling price, or the amount financed, was $102,671. So they are paying half of that just in interest. Okay. That to me is, lunacy, but that's just me.
What's also nuts about this, because someone's going to see 12.74% and they're going to say, oh, this person must have bad credit. They put $0 down.
No, you don't get approved for a 7-year note with zero out of pocket and a monthly payment of $1,863 if you have bad credit. That very well might be the going rate for that type of and size of loan.
Yeah, absolutely nuts what's going on from an approval standpoint. And obviously, folks are making those decisions. Earlier in the show from Kyle, thank you, Kyle, was able to use all the CarEdge information to help a family member get a new Mazda 3 for $1,700 under invoice and 4.9% financing. Loved helping them and putting all your coaching to good use. That is so fantastic.
Yes, it's good to hear.
From 86 Films. You guys saved me $14,000 off of MSRP last year. Thank you so much. So in addition to asking everyone to participate in our survey, again,
Yes.
caredge.com/survey, also go to caredge.com and check out our 25% off promotion, both 25% off our car buying services, which include the negotiation expert, as well as the full car buying service. We've never done 25% off before, folks, so please take advantage of this. This is our way of trying to help people out during these 25% import tariffs. And for CarEdge Insights, which are the tools we use to beat the dealer, you can get your hands on those for 25% off as well. All right, Pops, another show in the book. A huge thanks to Laura and the BlackBook team, and we'll be back tomorrow with more CarEdge Live.
Yes, I'll be back from Ventnor, New Jersey, and Zach will still be here in Washington, D.C., at least for the next few days, and then who knows where he's off to.
Who knows? All right, folks, we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.